is Michael, and welcome back to my video series uh, regarding different types of activities and strategies to help the classroom teacher. Today's strategy has to do with, excuse me, I have to readjust myself here. Today's strategy has to do with the periodic table of the elements. And what I make, this is a critical thinking activity. Okay. Um, it will take most of the period. It is a competitive type of activity where the first group that constructs the periodic table will receive 15 points on their uh, uh, lowest grade, which is either a major grade or a daily grade. The second place group will, which means the group that uh, uh, constructs it second, they will receive 10 points toward a major or a daily grade. And then the last group will receive 5 points. And yes, it will take most of the period. So, science teachers, what I would do is, first of all, you have to determine, since it's a very critical thinking skill because it takes logic and to complete this puzzle. And in this case, it's five. I have five, the first five periods of the periodic table. I don't have all seven. The reason why is because uh, it will take a shorter time to complete this. To do 5 periods, to construct 5 periods and put 5 periods of the elements in order rather than seven. So I did not want to do seven because it's going to take a little bit more than the whole period. So what I would do, teachers, I would determine which class period you're going to do this with, because not all class periods can handle this. If you have a class, and I don't mean to be cruel, but I'm just going to say it as I know from experience. If you have a class of a majority of special needs students that really need a lot of help, especially in the area of critical thinking, then I would not do this. Now, I have had some regular classes of average students that have done much with this activity. They have completed this activity much faster than my pre-AP classes. So that doesn't mean much. You know your classes, teachers, and you know how well they can perform in groups. And like I said, there are some pre-AP students that get confused with this whole thing and they give up. So, in order to help your students, what I would do, first of all, to construct this periodic table, you have to give them some background knowledge. Uh, you cannot do this at the beginning of a unit in which you are working with the periodic table. It has to be near the end of the unit. They have to have some experience working with the periodic table in order to construct this puzzle. Okay? It has to be very near the end of the unit. They've had to have seen and worked with the periodic table numerous times before I would do this. Okay, number one. Number two, I will tell them ahead of time, this is what we're going to do tomorrow. And you have some extra credit built in, and it will be a daily grade assignment, because what you're doing is you're going to develop a activity sheet and you're going to ask them questions um, about the periodic table. Okay, I would develop an activity sheet regarding the periodic table based on what you're doing. Uh, okay, and then last but not least, depending on your class, what I would do is I would have a periodic table handy to place it on the document camera. I would tell my students, okay, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to flash the periodic table on the screen twice to help you, and I'm not going to do it anymore, just twice. And you give them a certain amount of minutes to work on the puzzle, and you flash the first clues, and then later on in the class period, you flash the second clue for the periodic table on the screen, and they can go from there. It all depends on your classes. Some classes won't need that help. Other classes will need that help. Don't do it too long when you flash the periodic table on your screen to help your students move along in this activity, because if you do it too long, they'll just rely on that the whole class, most of the class period. Don't do it too often, because they'll just wait. Well, we'll wait for the clue. We're waiting for the clue. Okay, don't do it 5 or 6 times, because they'll wait every time. I will only do it twice, depending on your class. And then some classes don't even need uh, the periodic table to be flashed on the screen at all. Okay, so if you don't have a document camera, you can hand out one copy of the periodic table per group and let them look at it for a few seconds or maybe a minute, and then you go back and you gather the periodic table and retain it for yourself, and allow them to continue to work. Because sometimes kids, if you don't give them any help with something this critical, then they'll give up, they'll get frustrated, they'll give up, and they'll just be sitting around talking. So you want them to give them in I'm old school, so we would say you want to prime the pump, so to speak. Okay, and again, teachers, some classes will need this help, and some classes won't even need any clues. You just tell them what to do, and they go for it. All right, so the thing that you tell them is, I'm going to give you, I usually draw this on the board and go over it with my pointer. I'll draw this on the board. What I mean by this, I draw a Punnett square on the board, and I go over the 3 clues that we're going to use. Okay, and so since I don't have a board or a document camera in this video, I'm going to show you one of these puzzle pieces. Here are the clues. You have a family symbol, you have the symbol of the element itself, and you have the weight of the element. And I always remind my students that we are putting you in the place of Dmitri Mendeleev. He only had 63 elements to work with in his day. Now we have 118 elements, okay? And so we're going to put you through what he did in this activity. You're going to construct the first 5 periods of the periodic table using these 3 clues. The family clues, the family characteristic, the symbol, and the weight. Now, what's going to happen is the kids are just going to start thinking, oh, well, we just put them in the order of their weights, and they're gonna get it's going to be a lot more. I shouldn't say a lot more, but they're going to find that the weights, just following the weights, the progression of the weight is not going to do it. They're going to have to use the family clues. And when I walk around my classroom to each group, and we have already went over the difference between a family of elements and the period of elements. I have already went over this more than one time. So they have background. Again, you're not going to do this unless they use the periodic table um, at least 3 or 4 times before this activity. Okay. And they should know the difference between a family and the difference between a period. So I walk around my group and I keep saying families are important. Families are important. I just keep saying it over and over. And some of these kids will say, yeah, I know my family. I like my family. I like my family. I love my sister and my aunt and my uncle. And I'm like, no, no, no. You don't understand. The family of elements are important. And I keep saying it. That same clue. And some of the kids get it. You group these not only just by the weight or the mass of the atom, but also by the family characteristics. So you're not only going across with the mass, but you're also going vertically with the family characteristics. And once they find that they need to follow the most important one, is probably the family characteristic. Once they find that out, then they begin to get it and construct the puzzle. Okay. I have also found that students they talk about this during lunch to each other. We're gonna do this in Mr. Waller's class. We're gonna do this. Yeah, yeah. The family, man. Make sure you get the family right. So they learn. All right, which is my goal for my students. Know the working difference between a family of elements and a period of elements. This is the overall goal of this activity. Also note who developed the periodic table and what logic did he use to construct the periodic table. Now, teachers, this is going to take some work because I'm a craftsman and I cut every one of these element squares out of wood. You don't have to use wood, but since I'm a craftsman and I have saws and things of that nature, maybe your husband or if your wife is handy with saws or whatever, they can use a jigsaw, they can use a circular saw, they can use a table saw to cut each one of these element squares. Or you can get your if you are fortunate enough to be in a school or or know someone in high school that's has a crafts class, a wood shop, class, they can help you do this also. Okay. Or if you have a neighbor or whomever that can make these element squares for you, you can do it. Now, also, you don't have to use wood to construct the element squares. You can use one of these devices that you can find in every craft store, almost every craft store in America. These are paper cutters. Your element squares do not have to be rectangular. You can cut them into squares. Okay, and so this device is used to cut paper into squares. You don't have to use the soft copy paper. You can also use cardstock. So what I would, if I were you, if I were in your shoes, I would use cardstock if you are actually cutting from paper. Okay, and so these will cut very easily and very quickly. You can make the element squares. Okay, and you can get someone to help you decorate. This can be a summer project for you to do over the summer to create this puzzle. What's the value of this puzzle? The value of this puzzle would be have a working knowledge. Your students will have a working knowledge on how to construct the periodic table, how they're grouped into families, how they're grouped into periods. So will it take the period? It will take almost the whole period to do this. Believe me. Because the first thing you have to do is you have to explain to them what you're doing. And it's going to take 5 or 10 minutes to explain what you're doing with the 3 clues. You know, you have the family symbol and the regular, the element symbol and the weight. That's how you arrange these. You're using these 3 clues to arrange these elements in their proper sequence in the periodic table. Okay, so yes, this is a critical thinking skill. You're going to have to determine which classes that you're going to use. You're going to have to determine how many clues you're going to give your classes depending on their ability, because each class is different. As you know, each class is different. Each one of them has their certain abilities, and you're going to have to determine which classes cannot do this. So anyway, I just want to be able to show you this, and I appreciate the privilege of you taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video and you like this idea. Thank you for the privilege of allowing me into your life to show you this idea, this critical thinking skill idea on the subject of the periodic table of the elements. And again, thank you for this time. Until next time, we'll be seeing you.